Welcome to Dawn of a Story. This is more than a podcast. It's a place where we speak the truth, tell the stories that shape us, and honor the moments that made us who we are. I created the space because I believe storytelling is how we connect, how we heal, and how we remember who we are. Some stories are still being written. Some are full of laughter. Some have changed everything, but all of them matter. Whether it's my story or one of my guests, my hope is that you hear something that resonates, that reminds you that you are not alone and encourages you to tell your story too. So settle in because every story starts somewhere, and this one starts now. Thank you for tuning in and welcome to Dawn of a Story. I'm your host, Dawn Pascal. I'm so very grateful that you decided to spend your time with me and my guest this week, Alicia Bervine. Every show, we will be exploring a new theme, and this week's theme is What She Says. Today, we're talking about the voice we use at work and the one we sometimes hold back. The gap between who we think we're supposed to be and who we actually are can shape everything from our confidence to our choices to how we define success. And maybe the truth is the lines between work and life aren't as separate as we've been taught to believe. Sometimes learning to trust what we say and how we show up is really about closing that gap. So let me tell you a little about my guest. Alicia is an HR professional and the creator of What She Says, where she breaks down workplace dynamics and professional growth with clarity and candor. Through her work, she helps people see their careers differently, show up with intention, and remember that life is lived in the moments we choose to step into fully. So without further ado, let's get started. Alicia, how are
Hey,
you?
John. I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. I'm so happy to see you. Like, so
Me
happy to
too.
see you.
It's been so long, but
It has. It has. So,
Mhm.
for our viewers and listeners who don't know, Alicia and I went to school with each other. Not only did we go to high school with each other, we were in the same, what we called FA, which is faculty
Mhm.
advisor, right? Which is the same as a
Yep.
homeroom. So, we sat next to each other or near each other for 4 years. So,
Mhm.
this is amazing. I'm so happy to see you.
I'm happy to see you too.
Thank you. So you've talked about the gap between who we think we're supposed to be and who we actually are. So how do
Mm.
you see that showing up for people at work?
So for me, I think showing up at work exactly as you are and what that looks like for people are different. In the Black community, we call it code switching. We talk a certain way when we're home or when we're with our friends and family. And then we come to work and we put on what we call the professional voice, what
Hmm.
that professional voice is supposed to look like. And I noticed that everyone does it. They just do it differently. They may call it something different. But when we're at work and we put on this persona, we overthink things. We're not really being able to concentrate on the work that we do because we're worried about how somebody might perceive us.
Hmm.
And for me, it came into crystal clarity. My hair is straight now, but I wear my hair naturally curly a lot of the times. And I was applying for a position at USC where I work. And my mom said to me, well, aren't you going to straighten your hair? Aren't you going to cover your tattoos? I have 14 tattoos. And I thought, well, no, because I work here. They already know what I look like. But it really made me think the perception of what people see
Hmm.
me as.
Hmm.
And do I need to change for any reason?
Right.
And I got nervous about it. When I went into that job interview, I did straighten my hair. Like I got very nervous about it. I didn't cover my tattoos because I couldn't cover them. But I got nervous about that. And then after I did get the position, I thought, well, now if I show up with curly hair, they're going to be like, what is this wild woman looking like? And so I wore my hair straight for a while, but then I let it go. I couldn't keep straightening it. I braided in the summertime. It's just part of who I am.
Right.
And I didn't want, that doesn't have anything to do with who I am professionally or my education or the work that I do. And I realized that so many people worry about that.
Yeah.
And so helping people just really understand that it's not work-life balance. Remember in the 90s, it was all about work-life balance. I really feel like it's work-life integration because who I am at home comes to work with me every day. If I'm having problems at home, that shows up at work with me. Everything that I do in my life is part of who I am, makes me who I am,
Yeah.
and that's true for everybody. And so I try to help people just kind of step into, who are you? Who do you choose to be? And being that person all the time just makes you better at everything.
Right. You know, being a
Mm.
former HR professional myself for 20 something years, perception is reality. And that was, I don't know, with stigma. I don't know the right way
Yeah.
to say it, but it was sort of like this hood that you always had
Mhm.
to wear, right? It was whomever thought of you as X or whomever thought of
Mhm.
you as Y, and that you
Yep.
needed to live and show up like that and not your
Yeah.
most authentic self. And I remember being labeled as the person who would always ask the question that
Mhm.
everybody else was thinking but didn't have the nerve to open their mouth and ask.
I do the same thing.
Good.
Is that
Yay.
from Brooklyn? Is that the
It
Brooklyn
must
thing? Because I
be.
do the same
It
thing.
must be. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it.
Mhm.
So, why do you think that there's a separation initially?
I think, especially when we first come into the workplace, you think you're supposed to behave a certain way
Yeah.
and you see how everybody else is behaving. And so you try to fit into that mold. Even when I first started professionally, like pantsuits weren't a thing. And
Right.
I tried to fit into that mold and I didn't like it. Like I wanted to wear pants. And so I bought very nice pantsuits. And my mother again had a fit. She's like, "Where are you going? You work?" And I'm like, this is who I am.
Right.
And so I just think people think this is how I'm supposed to be. And particularly in certain environments, corporate environments, especially, people think this is how I have to show up for people to take me seriously. And I just want to change that. Like,
Yeah.
you show up as who you are and do a good job. And that is why people should take you seriously. And it's going to shift anyway, because these Gen Z kids, they don't care. They are showing up how they are showing up. And it's the work that they do.
Mhm.
So it shouldn't matter. And that has to shift in the work world.
How far into your HR career did you start What She Says? So let's talk about that.
So what she said is about 2 years old, and I can't say I'm not consistent with it. I'm more consistent with it now than I was.
Okay.
But it just started as, I think my first article might have been tattoos in the workplace. And I was hiring a GA and she had tattoos. GA is a graduate
Yes. Yeah.
assistant. So she was in graduate school. She had tattoos like all up her arm. And nobody wanted to hire her. And I'm like, but she's great. And they kept saying, what about these tattoos? And I'm like, does it matter? Like,
Right.
what difference does it
Right.
make? And I hired her and she was fantastic. She was like one of the best GAs that I had. The tattoos didn't matter, but it was how people perceived her.
Hmm.
And so I pushed against that. And so that was my first article. It was like, tattoos in the workplace. Should they matter? Now, in certain places, they do. I think certain places still have bans against tattoos.
Hmm.
So, but if that is your value, then that's not the place that you want to work.
Right.
You shouldn't have to change yourself to fit into that mold.
I remember I don't okay, so let me start off by saying it this way. I don't exactly remember which
Mhm,
year it was. Maybe it was 2011, might have been
mhm.
2011
Yep,
because that was, as I look back, the towards the end of my, corporate year and transition into starting my own business.
mm,
I was off for 2 weeks straight, which we had to be, right, in sensitive
mhm.
roles in HR, and I got a nose ring, which I still have today, and I
Yep.
came back to work, and you would have thought that
Mhm.
I dyed my hair purple, not that there's anything
Yep.
wrong with that, cut it in a
Mhm.
mohawk, and that it was, and it shot fireworks out of my head. Like, you would have thought,
Yeah.
like, what I did to myself, and I'll never forget, the head of talent at the time said to me, "Are
Mhm.
you gonna keep that?" And I said, "Keep what?"
Yeah. Yeah.
And then she pointed to it, and I said, yeah." What
Mhm.
like, what does it make a difference? You know me for 15 years. What does it make a difference that I have a
I
nose
know.
ring?
Yeah.
Yeah, interesting, right?
Yeah, it is. It's just how people see it. I don't know what they see when they see a nose ring or
Right,
tattoos or whatever it is, but I'm still that girl from Brooklyn, so I still, like, wear a lot of jewelry, gold jewelry, hoop earrings, and I'm like, "This you're going to get it, and you're
right,
still gonna get professional work,
right,
but this is how I'm showing up."
right. Was there a moment in your life when you realized that you were showing up as who you wanted to be as opposed to who they wanted you to be or how you were expected to be?
I think it was a moment. I think I was on vacation too, and I had blue nails. And I came to work, you pay a lot for a manicure,
Right.
and I came to work with blue nails. And everyone just kept looking at my hands. And I'm like, well, what's wrong with my hands? And I realized that I just like the color. I like doing different color on my nails. And I wasn't going to change.
Right.
And that was the first thing. It was like, you're going to get blue nails, you're going to get black nails, you're going to get whatever it is. And you can look at it if you want to. You can ask me about it if you want to. But I'm not changing. And it was just that little thing of, I'm not changing my nail polish and it's okay. And I was working with students. I was working in the career center at the time, and the students loved it. And so I realized that it connected with the students, even though the professionals are like, what is she doing? Why does she have blue nails? And it was more of a conversation with the students. And I realized, you know what? They don't care. They're coming to me for their career advice and they don't care what my nails look like. So why does everybody else care? And that was the subtle shift, and it's fine. It's going to be fine.
And it probably made you even more relatable to them,
Mhm.
right? As
'Cause they had blue
opposed
nails too.
because they
Yeah.
probably had blue nails too. Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Do you
Mhm.
find that your colleagues are relating more to what you're writing in what she
Mhm.
says? Like, are you getting positive feedback from them, or do you feel that it's still kind of on the cutting edge of their acceptance of it?
I get positive feedback from them because it's the same advice that I give when I'm working with people at work.
Mhm.
And so the one about the courage to be disliked. Everybody doesn't have to like you at work. People are starting to relate to that now. And they're like, you're right. I can ask the question that everybody's thinking, but nobody wants to ask. And it's okay. Everybody is not going to agree with everything that I said. And that's fine. And so I'm starting to get a lot more positive feedback and a lot more traction with it, which is great.
So when you encounter a colleague, if you do
Mhm.
still, what do you say to them to kinda persuade them to maybe just be a little bit more open-minded?
Um, Let me think about that for a second. I think when I'm working with people or I'm talking with people and they're worried about like what their manager will say, or I'm coaching them on how to have these conversations, I always say, what would you tell yourself?
Mm.
And then how would you receive it if you said it that way? You still want to be kind in your delivery, but if you told yourself, how would you receive that? And it helps people really just kind of think about their intentions
Yeah.
with their conversations. But I do realize that, everybody is not comfortable with that sometimes, especially in some of the HR spaces. They still feel like they have to be the professional in the room and they have to so it's a little bit more difficult that way, but I do find people are spreading it like, "Oh, she said this, she said that." I'm getting asked to come to more meetings and present on some of the topics. I went recently and presented on one about leadership lessons from Captain Picard. And so, people are starting to resonate with it a little bit more, and the workplace is changing anyway. So we work with students, we have Gen Z in the workplace. So they're noticing that the students are changing, and we're not going to change them. So we have to adjust. And so I do think people are now going back and starting to look at it and starting to say, okay, this is real. This is going to happen.
That's amazing. Look, I'm so excited. I would love to give a lot of credit to Brooklyn for I
Yeah.
don't know if it's the courage or if it's just the fact that we played out in the street and
Hmm.
dealt with conflicts ourselves and or worked
Yeah.
out whatever issues. Look, we're Gen Xers, right? Like it's a
Mhm.
very different mindset. We learn to
It is.
stand up on our own, for our own, fight our own
Hmm.
battles. I'm not saying that
Yeah.
we won every single one of them, right? Or we handled
Yeah.
them the best way possible, but at least we were in it and we didn't run screaming
Hmm.
home for help. We fought our way and learned our way through all of those experiences.
Yeah. We had to learn conflict with our friends in the street
Right.
and figure it out and make up and still be friends.
Right. Right. No,
Mm-hmm.
absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah.
How does closing the gap change the way we experience confidence and success?
I think when you're authentic, you're definitely more confident. You lose confidence in trying to be somebody else. And if you show up to work and you're trying to be somebody else, you're not confident in that.
Right.
So closing the gap is when you are authentically who you are, it just makes you a better employee, a better human being in the first place. And so I think that that helps close the gap. I do have a lot of conversations about how do you manage these Gen Z people or how do you manage, and I'm like, they're human beings also. They are showing up to work how they want to show up to work. And as long as you are coaching them on the performance, the work they're doing, not the fact that you don't like their jeans or not the fact that you don't like that they have a nose ring. If you're coaching them on their work, they'll receive that.
Yeah.
But if you are criticizing them or judging them based on how they dress or, long as they're not showing up in pajamas, I've had that before. But if they're showing up to work dressed and you're coaching them on their work, then they will receive that. You just have to treat them like professionals. You hire them for the work. So, coach to that. And so I think it's almost forcing Gen Xers and boomers who are still in the workplace to have to face themselves and then realize that they themselves have not been showing up authentically all the time. And I think they judge it because they realize that they haven't been doing it themselves. And it just feels foreign. And so that's not a them problem, that's you problem. So now you have to face it and figure out who you are authentically and show up to work in that way.
Do you find yourself tapping into like childhood instances or occurrences or situations or resolutions that you had to work through yourself? Because again, we're dealing with very different
Mhm,
generational backgrounds. I don't know how to
mhm.
describe it, but I know you know what I mean. Like we
Yeah,
we all don't handle everything the same way. So
we
how
don't.
yeah, yeah. So
Yeah,
do you find yourself tapping into like, well, when I was young,
yeah,
dot, dot, dot.
I do. And I do find myself saying, "Well, when I was young, we just had to handle it. We had to tough it out. No, nobody cared about our feelings. You can come to my office and talk about your feelings, and I will listen to you." But then I always ask the question, "What are you going to do about that?
Mm.
Is there something that you are going to do about it? Is it something you want me to do about it? Do you need an HR intervention? Or are you just coming to vent?" Because ultimately, as HR, I can guide you, but I'm not your supervisor and I'm not you. You have to deal with that situation. And, back in my day, we had to deal with conflict head on. There was nobody to intermediate between us. HR was completely different back then.
Right.
HR just
Was
didn't
personnel.
have to.
Right.
Right, exactly. They hired you and that was it. And so I always push back because ultimately you need the tools, you need the skills to manage that conflict or manage that situation yourself.
Do you find like there's a standard phrase that you have on repeat that you say to these young
Mhm,
adults over and over again? Is
mhm.
there like a good
Yeah.
old favorite that you use?
There are 2 things that I use. One is your lack of planning is not my personal emergency.
Oh,
They
okay.
love that one. But it's true.
It
You
is
come to me
true.
and it's urgent. I'm like, "But you didn't plan for this." And then the other one is when they come to me and they just are, venting. It's, "What do you wanna do about it? Do you want me to do something about it? If not, we can revisit this when you're ready to do something about it, because I'm not just gonna be the office that you come to vent all the time. So what's the action that we're going to take here?"
Do you ever refer them to your blog to say, "Hey, why don't you read episode, or, chapter
Mhm.
4 or episode 2," or whatever?
Sometimes I email them articles specifically like,
Really?
"This you need," yeah. I did one about one-on-ones and how do you prepare yourself for one-on-ones. You don't just show up and say, "Hey, what do you want?" So I email that out all the time. You need to prepare for your one-on-ones also. I always feel like when you are interviewing for a job or when you're doing something, you have to be invested in that also.
Mhm.
If you're interviewing for a new job, you're interviewing them the same way that they're interviewing you. And it may not be a fit for you. They may love you, but you may see something in that place and go, "No, this is not where I want to work." And you have to be vested in that too. All money is not good money. All jobs are not going to be a good fit for you. And so you do need to do that also. I remember when I first started interviewing at the University of South Carolina, my son was really young. And I said to them, I'm a single parent at this point. I just relocated to South Carolina. So, like, I am all I have.
Mhm.
If something happens, I need to be able to leave to go get him. If something happens, I need to be able to stay home or work from home. And I asked that question, is this place flexible? And they said yes. And I was like, okay, so this is a good fit. If they said no, I wouldn't have been able to do it
Right.
because it was just me.
Right. Right. Wow.
Yeah.
What made you
So,
move to South Carolina?
oh, it's a long story.
Okay. We have
Um,
time.
separated. Yeah, we do. Separation from my son's father. My sister was relocating, and me and my sister are tight.
Yep.
My cousin, who I was close with, also passed away.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And right before she passed away, she said to me, I'm going to need your help with my daughter. And they were down here.
Wow.
And so, with all of that kind of happening at the same time, it was just like a firestorm of events. So, I was at JP Morgan and I quit and relocated to South Carolina. No job, no plan, but just knew that this is where I needed to be at the time.
Yeah. Oh my god,
Yeah.
that's amazing. What courage that
Yeah.
took to just up and go. I mean, I know in one
Yeah.
sense it feels like you had to, right? But you didn't. You always
Mhm.
everybody always has a
Yeah.
choice to do it, but that
Yeah.
took a lot of courage. Brooklyn's a great place.
It
I love
is.
Brooklyn, don't get
Everyone
me
knows I'm
wrong.
from Brooklyn. I always say that Brooklyn is a blood type, it's not a borough. Like, anyone from New York,
I
if you
love it.
say where you're from, most people say New York, except if you're from Brooklyn, and you say Brooklyn
Right.
as if it's a separate
Yeah.
place.
I've lived
Yeah.
in New Jersey now for almost 30 years, okay?
Yeah.
And people will ask me, "Oh, what part of New Jersey did you grow up in?" And I go, "I'm from Brooklyn."
Yeah.
You know? And I
Mhm.
will always say that, not to any disrespect to New Jersey.
But
It's
yeah.
wonderful. The Garden State's great. It's fun to be on this
Yep.
side of the river. We get to look at the beautiful city skyline.
Mhm.
It's all good. It's all good. But yes, I will always still
Mhm.
consider myself to be a New Yorker without a doubt.
Yeah. Always from Brooklyn,
Totally.
that's what I say.
Totally.
Yeah.
So,
And I've been in South Carolina now going on 20 years. Like, it's
seriously?
been a while. Yeah.
Wow. Wow, that's amazing.
Mhm.
What does it look like when you see one of the young adults that you're counseling who
Mhm.
have started to fully integrate, I don't wanna say the 2 sides of life, but their work self and
Mhm.
their personal life self to be a fully authentic person? What does it
Mhm.
what does it look like to you?
I think it feels like they're more relaxed at work. And you can show up and say, I'm having a bad day, or I know my staff can say this is happening at home. And so I understand why the office door may be closed because you're dealing with something and you're working, but you just don't want all of the distractions. I think when you're able to do that, people really work harder for you because they know that you understand them and they know that you give them grace when something is happening. And I had an employer give that to me when my son in, I think, 2018 got really sick. And I was in a meeting with her and almost had a breakdown. And she was like, "You need to go home. Like, why are you even here?" And I worked from home pretty much the entire summer.
Wow.
She just gave me the grace to be home, to be able to be with him and still able to work. And I didn't have to tell colleagues. Nobody even knew. Like, I said that to someone and like, we didn't even know you were home that entire time because I was just able to integrate my life with the work that I was doing. And when you give employees that, when you give them that grace, when you give them that understanding, I think they show up for you more. They work harder. The people matter to me. If you don't care about the people and you're just caring about the outcomes, whatever the outcomes are, people feel that. People want to feel like the place that they show up and they're at most of the day cares about who they are as a human being. And them being able to show up authentically, be exactly who they are, be accepted for who they are, really does help make a better workplace, a better work environment. And I've been in so many toxic work environments. I'm sure that you have too. Who wants to do that? Who wants to get up and go to a toxic work environment for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week? So when you make your environment not toxic, when you make it people focused, you do get better outcomes.
I can't even start to tell you some of the stories of things that I've encountered throughout my decades, right? That I've worked in in HR. I mean,
Mhm.
we've got stories for days, but I
Yeah. Mhm.
distinctly remember when I was at my last, employer before leaving to open up my shop and be an entrepreneur, that I
Mhm,
got myself, to the point where I was working from home 2 days a week. And
mhm,
I have to tell you, even though I know sometimes people have challenges with being
mhm.
alone, and not necessarily getting out of the house or whatever, and I'm very much a people person, that. I was
Yeah,
so productive on the days that I
right.
worked from home that I got up and I still got ready
Mhm.
and I made a pot of
Yeah,
coffee and I had a dedicated space with my computer, and I had a printer, and it was like a whole environment. I
yeah.
was so productive on those days, but it took
Mhm,
a yeoman's effort to get that company to be okay
mhm.
with, the person not physically being there in Manhattan, because to them
Yeah,
it was so like, you need to be here. And it's like, why? Why do I
yeah,
physically need to be there? I am way more
yeah.
productive at home because
At
I've got
home. Yeah,
nobody standing and banging on my door and coming in and distracting me all day long.
yeah,
Not that my phone didn't ring and not that I didn't have an exorbitant amount of emails, but it was
yeah.
like, it was just, for me, it was such a breath of fresh air that I was
It
able to
is.
sort of recenter myself and be okay with the fact that I
Mhm.
still had the golden handcuffs on, right? Like, and
Yeah,
this was all sort
yeah,
of towards the end of my existence in corporate. When you when you say to the universe enough, show me my exit strategy, I can't do this anymore, and it listens to you.
yeah. Yeah,
Yeah, you got to be open
yeah.
for it, right? And you got to be ready.
You
So
gotta be
if
ready.
you
It's amazing how many people still think that working from home, you're not doing work.
Oh, no.
Like, it's to me, that is still it took me 4 years to get work from home arrangements at the University of South Carolina. I had to convince them, and we started in one unit, and then we moved to another unit, and then COVID happened, and then they're
Yeah.
like, "Oh, yeah, everybody can work from home."
Right.
So
Right.
it changed everything, but working from home is really part of work-life integration. Like, I would get up, I would be on the computer 6:30 in the morning because I was up,
Right.
but then also I would do a load of laundry,
Right.
and that's work-life integration. I'm here, I'm still working, so it shouldn't matter that I'm doing a load of laundry
Right.
at noon
Right.
because I started working at 6:30.
Right. No, believe me, I'm totally with you. If you
Yeah.
were still in New York and at JP Morgan, do you think that you would have started What She Says? Or did all of those incidences and occurrences and changes need to happen for you to start it?
I think I would have eventually come to it anyway, because at JP Morgan, the area that I worked in right before I left was the corporate diversity area, which probably might be gone
Right,
now.
right.
But it was the corporate diversity area, and we were a bunch of very young people that they gave a whole lot of power to. I don't know why, but we were all very young in our 20s, and we did a lot of like planning of events. We did like the Bring Your Daughter to Work
Hmm,
Day. I think I would have come to it eventually because of the group of people that I was working with. We were just young and didn't know better at the
yeah.
time. Yeah.
I I really can't tell you how familiar and comforting it is to have this conversation with you, really, truly. And again, I know that I
Mm,
started out the show by saying I haven't seen you in a hot minute, but just the
yeah.
fact of hearing you speak, it just sort of just throws me back to how we grew up in a very similar
Mhm.
way. I really just am tickled
Yeah.
pink to see you and to chat with you.
I was telling my son a story about how, when we were seniors, we could leave a little bit early, but if we didn't have classes, sometimes I would leave even earlier than I was supposed to leave.
Right.
And you were the person who would like sign my name out to say that I left on time. And he was like, really? I'm like, true story.
Oh. Oh, yeah. We got a lot of those stories too, which that might be a whole separate conversation that we'll get into.
Yeah.
But before we go, Alicia, I
Mhm.
ask every guest the same question because I believe the stories we leave behind say so much about how we showed up in the world. So tell me,
Mhm.
what is
Mhm.
one story, big or small, that you hope people remember you for?
I think what I want people to remember me for is for always being truthful and honest with them and showing up in my most authentic way and helping them see that they can show up in their most authentic way, helping them see that they can show up how they want to show up, change their mind if they want to change their mind and pivot and change directions, but also be fully present in their own lives.
Beautiful. I'm just so thrilled. I'm so thrilled that we had the chance to have this conversation. Can you tell everybody how they can access what she says? Where can it be found?
So it is whatshesays.com is a blog, and they can find it. They can find me on LinkedIn. It's right at the top of my LinkedIn page.
Thank you, Alicia, for being here.
Thank you for inviting me.
Well, I'm so happy. I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled.
I am too.
Truly.
I
Thank
am
you.
too. It was so good to see you.
Yes, you too. And I want to
Yeah.
thank everyone for tuning into this episode of Dawn of a Story. If you heard something today that moved you, made you laugh, or made you think, share it with someone you love. Please like and subscribe to the show. And if you're feeling brave, I'd love to hear your story by commenting below. It helps other story lovers find us too. If you'd like to connect with Alicia, she can be contacted through her email, which is AliciaBervine@gmail.com. I will also put that and the website to what she says in the show notes. Until next time, keep listening, keep sharing, and keep telling your story. Thank you. Thank you. So good
Thank
to
you.
see you. Thank you, Alicia.
Thank you. Thank you.